Welcome back to the Road to National series. In today's episode, I'm going to take you through a max effort lower workout. So my variation for this week was a 14-inch box squat. So my previous best on this was 200 kilos, but recently I hit a 200 kilo PR on a 12-inch box squat. So I decided I could obviously lift more at the 14 inches because it's slightly less range of motion. So I wanted to try and hit 210 kilos here. So that is what I built up to. So I attempted 210 and it was a little slow, a little bit of a grind, but honestly quite comfortable, and I was really happy to hit it. I'd sort of mentally psyched myself out before doing it, so it was good to hit it, and it was consistent with my new 12-inch PR, and obviously it's a 10 kilo PR for me. So happy with that, and moving on to the accessories. So the first accessory here is good mornings. Now this is the third week in my 3-week wave, so next week will be my deload week. So I try and go sort of lighter on my accessories this week. Usually I'm feeling quite fatigued, and that was definitely the case this week. So I have built up to 180 kilo good mornings during this 3-week wave. I think I did that 2 weeks ago in the first week after the deload week for like 2 sets of 5. Then I did 150 kilos for sets of 10 last week, I believe. And then this week, or a set of 10 and a set of 8, I think it was. And then this week I did 2 sets of 12 at 120 kilos. So honestly, I felt like I could have maybe got a little bit more, like based on the numbers, but how I was feeling on the day, like 12 reps was challenging. It looks way easier than it feels. This exercise in particular, obviously you're leaning right over. It feels like if I'm going to fail, I'll just cave forward and completely fail. So it sort of doesn't look like I'm grinding out the last few reps at all. It's not like something like a chest press where the last few reps will slow down massively and I'm able to grind it out. With this, I couldn't grind it out if I wanted to. I'd probably just end up caving forward. So that is why it doesn't look too challenging, but it really was. And breath control is very challenging during this. I'm trying to like brace because, again, if you have any sort of like core instability or weakness, you're just going to cave forward. So these did feel good. They lit up my posterior chain. Usually I feel these most in my lower back, and I am allowing my lower back to round a little bit. That is on purpose to get a bit of range of motion in the back and train back extension a little bit as well as hip extension. But at the time of recording this, it's the following day. It's actually my glutes and hamstrings which are the most sore. So they were definitely working as well during those. So moving on to the next accessory here, it's quad extensions, or more specifically single leg quad extensions. So I've been doing single leg quad extensions for this 3-week wave because I did it the first week and noticed that I had a strength imbalance. So imbalances are quite common for people. That will often happen with the size of muscles and the strength of muscles. That's actually pretty natural. I think people in general overly panic. However, for me, it is a fairly significant strength difference between my right quad and my left quad, and I know exactly why it happens. It's because if you've not followed the channel for a while, I've talked about this multiple times throughout this series, but I have been working through a right knee injury. It is getting so much better now. Case in point, I was able to max out on the squat and not feel much discomfort. It was actually a little bit tight on that squat. I think that's why it turned into a bit of a grinder. If my knee was fully back to 100%, I'd probably be able to attack the weight more out of the hole, and I think the additional bar speed of being able to attack the weights would allow me to lift way more weight, probably about like 10 kilos more in the squat, but that is substantial as well. So because of that, I'm basically trying to help strengthen up that right quad. So that's why I'm doing these single leg quad extensions and trying to help address that muscle imbalance. This will particularly go unnoticed on exercises like a quad extension. As you can see, the whole like quad extension itself lifts up as one. So if you're doing 2 leg variations, my asymmetry remained disguised for ages. I'm at my all-time strongest on dual leg quad extension, so I was like, oh, my quads are at their all-time strongest. So it can go unnoticed. That's the same for things like Smith machines, where the bar or a machine is fixed range of motion, where pushing on one side can lift both sides, it can disguise imbalances. So if you do want to see if you have imbalances, I do advise you also do single leg variations like this, and I'm using it to address that quad weakness. And I got slightly less reps on that right side. You can see I'm a bit frustrated there. I was frustrated after that second set on the right side because I was trying to get 2 sets of 15. I think I got a set of 15 on both sides on the first set, but only like a set of 13 on the right side on the second set. And the sets of 15 were pretty comfortable on the left side. So that's why I was frustrated. I feel like they're sort of separated by about 5 reps or maybe 10 to 20% difference in strength, which is a bit annoying. So moving on to the next accessory, it is calf raises. So I just left the bar from the good mornings with 120 kilos on because it's fairly light for me. I've done really heavy calf raises, like with the belt squat at the end of last week. I did 300 kilo calf raises, but I can only do them just off the flat and trying to get a bit of a contraction. Here I use the elevated block because the weight is lighter for more range of motion, but it does mean that I have to use a lighter weight. These felt really good. I think I got sets of like 12 to 15, somewhere around there. That would make sense because I think I got sets of 10 with 150 kilos the last time I did this. So somewhere around the sets of 12 to 15 should be about right. These actually pumped up the calves massively. I often find that when I do higher reps with the calves, as opposed to like with the 300 kilos, I was just getting through about 6 or 8 reps, and you can't really squeeze the calves and get a proper pump at that weight. It is just about shifting the most amount of weight and trying to create neurological adaptations, versus when you do slightly lighter weights, like I was doing on those calf raises, you get more of a pump and it actually feels harder, and obviously you can grind out more reps. With a heavy weight, as soon as you're not strong enough to lift it, it is very clear, like after 6 reps you cannot do a 7th, whereas when you're doing 15 reps, after 14, could you get a 15th, could you get a 16th? Maybe. So that's why I like to keep grinding and train different rep ranges as well. So the next accessory here was hip abductions. These felt fantastic. I used a slightly lighter band but wrapped it round the anchor point, as you can see, and it created a more even tension. But I felt these all in my outer glutes, my adductors, and they basically pumped up the adductors very effectively. I just did 1 set per side because both sets were actually targeting both sides. You're pushing out with both legs, and the standing leg, if anything, is doing more of the work. It seems to be the one that you're like pushing in against to try and accelerate the other way leg out. It's a bit difficult to explain. That was very poorly articulated there, but basically both sides were working, and that's why I did just 1 set per side, or 2 sets in total, which I do for all of my accessories. So coming on to the last accessory here, I just had a miscellaneous lower exercise program. So because it is the end of my 3-week wave, it's the last week and I'm feeling fatigued, I decided to go for a fairly light exercise here with the hip holds, but these are challenging. My glutes were actually feeling a bit sore here from those good mornings I was saying earlier. So on the standing leg in particular, it almost feels like you're doing a single leg hip thrust to keep your raised leg up. This exercise is not a common exercise. I've said this every time I do it. I just sort of made it up, but it seems to hit my hip flexors, a bit of the front of the shins, like the tibialis, because you're having to hold the kettlebell up, and it also just hits the glutes of the standing leg quite a lot. It is way more challenging than it looks. Now, I'm only showing 1 set per side here, but I did actually do 2 sets, but for the sake of the video, I don't think you want to watch me just standing there loads. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff, and have a great day.